All right, Sergio Mora, back from Oceanside, California, but just for a couple of days. You are packing your bags once again and heading to the city that never sleeps, the one city in America that doesn't need an injection of Sergio Mora. And I'm talking about New York City, Brooklyn, New York, particularly. Boots-Zayas, Xander-Zayas Unified Championship. Are you ready for your 3 days in the Big Apple?
I love sleep. What are you talking about? I love sleep. I'm not one of those guys that stays out late. I mean, I'm done by 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I sleep like 10, 11 hours. That's my routine. No matter what city I go to, even in Las Vegas, I love to sleep, Mannix. To quote Ernest Hemingway, I
Oh,
love
God.
sleep. I love sleep. My life has a tendency to fall apart when I'm awake.
Uh, yes, I would agree with that. Your
There you
life does
go.
fall apart when you're awake. Those waking hours, especially between the hours of 8 p.m. and 1 a.m., yes, I do think your life tends to
Hey,
fall.
by the way, I want to give a shout out to a podcast listener, a big
All
podcast
right.
listener. He's my brother-in-law's neighbor. He came out giddy running, like if like he wanted to meet me, and he says he's a big fan of you somehow, some way. I don't know. He is a white man, but big fan of the podcast. He loves listening. He's not even a big boxing fan. I don't know why he listens to us, but he likes the rapport between us. So shout out Brian, Bill's neighbor.
Yeah, we meet a lot of podcast listeners at these shows. I had one guy who was sitting right behind us who, clearly has been listening for a long time, was asking me about my child, was asking me, telling me he loved the show.
Yeah.
So a lot of great podcast listeners. Love meeting you guys every week. We're gonna, this is off
People
topic, but
still ask about my mom on the contender. The contender that was 20, who knows how many, 22 years ago, and people still ask about my mom. It's crazy. I mean,
the
they
life.
get this personal connection when me and you are just, blabbing our mouth about boxing. Once in a while, we inject our personal life, and
Or
they,
mostly you inject my personal life into our conversations. What
hey,
what
I
happens
like
here?
that little baby picture of Miles in that, what was it, an airplane or a UPS truck?
That was the our flight. Yes, we
Yeah, that
uh
was pretty
we took
cool.
we took his first cross country flight this week. He went from Los Angeles to Boston to hang out with the other side of the family, and he did pretty well. Did pretty
Yeah,
well. I
first
will say this. I will say this.
he
I
was in the
sprung
cockpit,
for
right?
Yeah, I sprung for the Delta One seats for this flight because you can't take a 6 month old on a cross country flight and you can't risk like chaos ensuing. And I'm glad I did because it was kind of chaotic on that plane for
You're
6 hours.
already introducing them to the privileged side
I
of life
know,
that you
I
grew up.
know, I know. I
Incredible,
didn't
man.
grow
This
up
kid's not even one
privileged.
year old and he's already in Delta One meeting the pilots. Man, I'm telling you, if this kid didn't have blue eyes, there's no way he wouldn't make it on the cockpit. No Mexican in the cockpit. I can't, I don't see it, but privileged because of his father. What can I
No,
say?
a Mexican in the cockpit. They're calling the authorities to come there and come in there and take him.
Closest I've gotten to it was the laboratory, the bathroom, Mannix.
Just say the bathroom. You don't have to see the
Doesn't
laboratory.
look
All
like
right.
a that
All
bathroom.
right, we got a lot to get into. I do want to talk about Oscar Collazo's win, but mostly I want to talk about what's next for Collazo. Ryan Garcia is active on social media, not talking about Conor Ben. I want to touch about that. We had some news regarding Virgil Ortiz that Oscar De La Hoya revealed to us this weekend on DAZN. And Turki Alalshikh is trying to make peace between the power brokers in boxing. Do we think that's possible? But Sergio, I want to touch on something that happened last week where our conversation about the AJ Fury fight kind of went viral. Especially some of the criticisms that we had for this fight potentially taking place in the U.S. And to quote Conor McGregor, I'd like to take this time to apologize to absolutely no one because I'm right. And everyone else that says, hey, it's about the money,
What
it's
did Connor
about
say?
getting the
I'm
best
sorry, I
deal.
missed that.
Now, Conor McGregor, you remember back in the day when he won the double belt, he said, I'd like to take this moment to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Oh,
Here,
you're quoting him. Gotcha.
Adam, play the clip. Play the Conor McGregor quick clip. That's how I feel, Sergio, because I got jumped on by a lot of people who said, hey, you would take the most money. You would do this. You would do that. Well, I would, but I have not been someone that has been milking the British public for ticket sales and pay-per-view buys and, Sky Sports revenue and DAZN revenue for the last 10 years of my professional career. I stand by what I said. These two guys, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, they owe it to the fans of the UK to have that fight in the UK. And I've talked to people involved after our little debate on that, and they've been telling me, you better get ready because it's coming to the US. Well, if it does, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. This fight belongs in the UK. The biggest fight in British boxing history belongs on British soil. And if it's not, it is a slap in the face to everyone that's been a British boxing fan that has supported Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury over the years.
No, listen, it was this Saturday, I think I told you that it got a lot of traction online. And yeah, it went viral because of your honest harangue, Mannix. It was beautiful. I mean, I was just once in a while I get into awe by you. I mean, you are articulate and you put things really nicely in perspective. You can't put those words into writing. I don't get it, but that's another story. But yeah, it was
What the hell are you
excellent
talking about?
because you're not a great writer.
Oh
You're a
my
great
God.
orator. You're a great debatist. You debate well. You missed your calling. You should have been an attorney or a lawyer. But that's neither here or there. It went viral because it was honest. It was an honest critique because it does belong in the UK. It doesn't belong anywhere else. And whoever else thinks that it belongs in the States in a big arena with two British former heavyweight champions, I don't get it. I don't see it. It's not going to sell as well as it will across the pond. So if it's a money grab, then let's call it what it is, because it has nothing to do with giving back to the fans or giving back to the sport or making this sport great. It's all greed. It's all money and it's nonsense. And you put it perfectly into words.
I'll be interested to see what Eddie Hearn has to say about it this week. Eddie will be in New York as the promoter of Jaron Ennis, a fight that we are going to talk about later in the week. Don't worry, we're going to go deep into that fight. But I'll be interested to see what Eddie Hearn has to say about the AJ situation, because he's the one that came out a couple of weeks ago right here on this show and said, we have a contract that says the fight has to take place in the UK. Are they going to be influenced by money? Are they going to take the extra buck and put the fight in the US and do a disservice to the UK boxing fan?
Use another word. Use another word. This service doesn't really bring the heaviness of how much of a slap in the face is it.
The disrespect, slap in the face,
There
all
you
those
go.
things. But
Disrespect
is he
the service of this opinion of some alliteration? Do another diss.
okay?
You're
Thank
dissing
you.
the fans, Mannix.
You're dissing me right now. Is he going to do that? I don't know. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I'm anxious to see what Eddie has to say. We're going to try to get him on this show later in the week as well. All right. I don't want to talk any more than we have to about what we saw from Oscar Collazo and Nader Valdez. That was unequivocally one of the worst main events that I've ever seen. It was not a great card from top to bottom. You had some spectacular performances. I thought Ruslan Abdullayev looked great. He was the third fight on that show. Joshua Edwards got the job done as he continues his ascent, but it was largely a bunch of one-sided fights. And then the main event was just a disaster where Nader Valdez had a semi-competitive first round. You could even make an argument that he won the first round. Then he gets knocked down 3 times. And even though he had his wits about him, even though he was okay, his corner quickly ordered the commission to stop the fight, throw in the towel, and the fight was over. So I don't really want to talk about Sergio. I don't want to get into it because it was such a crap fight. What I do want to talk about is whether or not that performance told you, Sergio Mora, former world champion, that Oscar Collazo was ready for a big fight, specifically if he was ready for a fight against Ricardo Sandoval, because that is the fight that Golden Boy is lining up next. Ricardo Sandoval, who is the unified champion at 112 pounds, he is available to fight because the Galalia fight has fallen through. Golden Boy officials told me that on Saturday. That is no longer going to be Sandoval's next fight. So Sandoval is available. He would certainly take a fight against Collazo for the right money. Is it the right move for Collazo, in your opinion, to go straight into a fight against Ricardo Sandoval?
No, it's not. How do you go from 105 and skip a weight class and go to 112 and deal with the unified champion? Look, if as a fighter, see, there's many ways to look at this, and this is what I got to unwrap for you and the layman out there. A fighter's been boxing and preparing his entire career for a certain weight class, and they perfected that weight class. If he's outgrowing it, that's one thing, but he hasn't even outgrown the 105 weight class. From what I hear and from what he tells us, he struggles making the weight, but he hasn't missed weight. He hasn't had a bad performance because of weight. So Collazo at 20, he's still a young guy. He's still able to make this weight division, and his dream is to become undisputed. That's not going to happen. All right. So That's where the business comes in. The fighter already made his opinion. He wanted to become undisputed. Not going to happen. Now, 108, there's a Puerto Rican champion that's unified. Why not stop there before you go up to 112 and face a unified champion at 112 in Ricardo Sandoval, a hard punching power puncher, especially to the body. Just great, excellent fighter in Ricardo Sandoval. Why are you skipping the class? Just to what? Make a big fight? Impress your promoter? Oscar De La Hoya should know this. Oscar De La Hoya, when he jumped up to middleweight and got knocked out, it was just too much. It was just too much going from welterweight, especially when you came down from lightweight, 135. It takes time to evolve into these weight divisions. It takes height, Mannix. It takes height in order to distribute that weight. Collazo doesn't have that height. He's 5'2", and he's going up to fight at 112. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot, especially on that little frame of his. I would love for him to stop at 108, test the waters, just like Bam Rodriguez did in his last fight. Test the waters in between weights, and then you could bite off more than you could chew. See how your body responded. See if you can get that confidence of, okay, my power carried up. Even if it's false confidence, that's what you need to do. You can't just go straight up and attempt something great like that. Only few have done it. I don't think it's a good decision for Oscar Collazo.
So many rebuttals to this. One, and I'll start with the guy that you mentioned, Bam Rodriguez, who a few years ago made the jump from 108 pounds to 115 pounds to fight a guy that was considered one of the better guys at 115 in Carlos Cuadras. That was a young Bam Rodriguez jumping 2 weight classes. I don't know how many pro fights he had at that point, but jumping up in weight for that opportunity. He did it. If only we could name another great pound for pound guy that jumped up 2 weight classes to fight a unified champion. Okay, if only we could name another one. I remember when Manny Pacquiao was fighting 135 and he jumped up to 147 to fight Oscar De La Hoya, skipping 140 entirely at that time. Come on, it happens. If you are considered one of the best in boxing, you do things like this. Right now, Oscar Collazo, according to Ring Magazine, is one of the top 10 fighters in all of boxing. He's not undersized necessarily for 112 pounds. He was fighting against a guy that theoretically in Valdez was naturally bigger, but he still found a way to just beat the brakes off of him. And I would add one other thing. I like Ricardo Sandoval a lot. Good fighter. Credit to him for going to Japan to win that world championship. But nobody's calling Ricardo Sandoval a great fighter, are they? Ricardo Sandoval is a good fighter who has a loss on his resume, who went to Japan.
Close loss.
Dug deep. Was it that close? I mean, it was competitive.
Majority decision, yes, very
close. He lost clean that fight. We called that fight.
His last
but went to Japan, won a decision. Good for him. Excellent. Deserves everything that comes with it. But it's not like we're talking about King Kong here, right? So I am all for Collazo going to 112 and taking this fight. This is a marketable fight, Sergio. You just named the 108 champion. I'm in boxing. I have no idea who that fighter is. No idea who the champions are at 108 pounds. In these weight classes, they are driven by star power. Collazo's got a little bit of star power because of the muscle he has behind him in Miguel Cotto Promotions, Golden Boy Promotions. Go up to 112, take this fight. Like, I'll put it to you this way. Collazo versus Sandoval. Who do you favor right now? Who do you got in that fight?
Oof.
This is, you don't even have to answer.
No,
you don't have to answer. But the fact that we didn't think about it.
Hold on. No, I thought about it because I'm thinking if Collazo could be on the back foot boxing, but he only does that for a few rounds and he likes slugging it out. He's better on the front foot. Collazo on the front foot with Sandoval will probably get stopped. And, the Mexican-Puerto Rican rivalry is always great if the Puerto Rican's a puncher at that natural weight division, because then the power's going to carry. But if he's not, then punch resistance takes over, and that's always leaning on the side of the Mexicans. So you have a bigger, naturally stronger that could take a bigger punch in Sandoval. I would favor him, and I would favor him comfortably or unanimously or one-sidedly. Sandoval is too small for 112. He needs to stop at 108 to test the waters. But that's my opinion, Mannix. All right. And if you ask Sandoval, I'm sorry, if you ask Collazo, I'm sure he's going to do the 112 because he wants the biggest fights for the biggest money. 105 pounders, he can become undisputed. He's still not going to make a big payday, Mannix. That's the thing about these smaller weight divisions. One, they need to be active and keep fighting in order to pay the bills and keep their name in the minds of fans. But two, they need to jump divisions. And their divisions don't separate each other that much. 3 pounds, 4 pounds. It's not like 7 pounds or 8 pounds in the middleweight. So they're
I
able
get
to
it.
do it quicker and faster and at a faster rate. I I think you should start up at 108. Just one fight at 108, then you can do 112. Other than that, what's the rush? What is the rush?
Well, the rush is Sandoval could lose, and then that fight loses a lot of its luster. Right now, it has some juice to it because Sandoval is the unified champion. Like I don't look either way. Uh, as you well know, Collazo's team does not agree with you. Like after the fight was over, I dragged over Brian Perez from Coda Promotions, and I said, Brian, is this fight going to happen? He goes, absolutely. You said catch weight?
Great,
He goes, no, 112
great.
pounds. In fact, they're talking about doing this fight in Puerto Rico in October.
Listen, man, I respect Brian a lot. I know him a long time since the Cotto days. He knows what he's talking about. Team Cotto knows what they're talking about. And these Puerto Ricans got more confidence than you could think because they believe in their power. All right, so if they're on board, you ask my opinion. All
I
right,
did.
as a fighter, I'm looking at them. If I'm managing them, I say, hey, just one fight at 108. One, you collect the check, you feel out that power. You he's accustomed to being active. Collazo fights 3, 4 times a year, so activity is not the thing. He didn't take a beating. He wiped this guy out in a couple rounds. There was no wear and tear. Going to one more fight, 108, then you can go, guns blazing on 112, and it could do that. Then maybe he can actually, put up a great fight against Sandoval and shock the world and beat him. But if he goes straight to it with not feeling out 108, Sandoval's going to be the favorite.
I think, well, I don't disagree with you that he'd be the favorite. I don't think he'd be an overwhelming favorite. And in fact, I think I give Collazo a pretty good chance to win because Collazo's skills, I think, are real. And I think you'd agree with that. I just think if you wait, the risk outweighs the reward. Collazo could lose. Sandoval could lose. A terrific main event fight in Puerto Rico that would sell tickets and probably drive some ratings among the hardcore fans would be lost. And I don't want to see them lose that. I'd like to see them go right into it. All right. I want to talk about Ryan Garcia. Over the weekend, I interviewed Oscar De La Hoya, who appeared to pour some cold water on the talks involving Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn. Effectively, Oscar said there have been no talks for a Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn fight because Golden Boy hasn't been involved. And according to De La Hoya, Golden Boy has to be involved, and the fight has to be either on DAZN or with DAZN's blessing for that fight to happen. So, I heard from a few people in Garcia's team, in Garcia's orbit, that were certainly frustrated by what Oscar said. But what I heard from Ryan Garcia was a little bit different. What I saw from Ryan Garcia was on social media. And Ryan Garcia tweeted at Devin Haney and said, hey, Devin, what are you doing? And of course, Devin Haney, who's been trying to make that fight happen for the better part of a year, he's just started tweeting back. They went back and forth a little bit. And it kind of seemed to open the door that Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney could finally get it done. Now, I know these two sides have talked. Look, they both want a pile of guaranteed money. It's just not there, not to the level that they're looking for. But if they can get back together, Sergio, if these two sides can start talking again, of all the options that Ryan Garcia has out there, and I'm talking about a rematch maybe with Rolly Romero, this fight against Conor Benn, is Devin Haney the best of all options for Ryan Garcia?
I love that Conor fight. Uh, just to market that fight internationally, between two, you know, guys with hooks and looks. That's my line, by the way. I should have trademarked that a long time ago. Now I hear a lot of people calling, saying that whenever you got a good looking fighter that knocks out people, hooks and looks. Anyway, both these guys got the hooks and the looks, and Ben talks the talk as well. Actually, I think Ben can promote the fight a lot better than Garcia. Garcia just has that mass following. Conor Benn has that mass following. He can speak Spanish. He can speak Spanish better than the Mexican, this Brit. So I think that is the bigger fight internationally. But Ryan Garcia will be a big favorite. So I don't think it pans out in the ring. As far as stylistically, Mannix, 100% Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia is the best fight to go. Puncher versus boxer, guys that have so much history from the amateurs. You've seen how that first fight panned out. Devin Haney won pretty much every round, but he was getting knocked down too many times. Power versus chin, skill versus speed. It's on and on and on. You could put that fight anywhere. It's going to be huge. So yeah, I would say the biggest fight in boxing where it's going to whet the appetite of the real boxing fans, not the casuals. The casuals, I think Conor might be the bigger fight, but the real boxing fans, give me the rematch.
Yeah, I agree with you that a Ryan versus Conor Benn fight is very interesting. I think the press tour would be outstanding. The buildup would be great. I also agreed that I think Ryan would come in as a heavy favorite because I don't think Conor's faced anybody with that kind of speed and that kind of power. And if Ryan's right hand is what it looked like against Mario Barrios, that might be a short night for Conor Benn, who did not look good against Regis Prograis. I don't care what people on Ben's team say. I don't care what I hear from Zuffa people. He didn't look good against Regis Prograis, full stop. But I don't hate the fight if it happens. And all the stuff happening behind the scenes, the network stuff, like boxing fans should not care about that. We're covering it because we're a boxing podcast and we're in the sport. And that right now is what's holding that fight up. But boxing fans really shouldn't care where it winds up. You're going to watch it one way or the other, either way. What I do think, though, is that the Devin Haney fight is arguably the biggest fight you can make right now in boxing. I'm sure there are some others, plenty of others.
Arguably, I mean, you got Inoue Bam. That'll be
a big one as
Japan.
well. You know, you go up in weights as well. Bevel, better BF3 is pretty big.
Benavidez, Jaya Pataya.
Lots of good ones, but like
the winner of Boots-Zayas versus the return of Vergil.
Because of what happened in 2024, where these two guys just went to war in one of the most unexpectedly entertaining fights that we saw that year, because the bad blood has not dissipated one bit, because the styles are so good for each other. The styles are great. Like Devin, if Devin doesn't get clipped in that first round, Sergio, that fight might have gone a lot differently. Like that clipping he took in the first round where he didn't go down, that seemed to change the course of
Mannix,
the entire
if you remember
fight.
the build up to that fight, I said I don't think Devin Haney's chin holds up. And I remember, I think it was and he reached out to me and said some stuff. I go, hey, prove me wrong. You can't put muscles on a chin. So that's going to happen if they fight again, unless Devin Haney fights a perfect fight, which we've seen him do in his last fight against Brian Norman Jr., which he showed size, he showed strength. Bring that build, bring that power, bring that strength to a fight with Garcia, then make it interesting. You got to hurt and get the respect of Garcia. We've seen how Garcia didn't have no respect for Haney. He walked him down. He had his hands down. He was acting like the fool the entire lead up to the fight, drinking and act. Man, I just think he has his number. Ryan Garcia has Devin Haney's number. So
yeah, but you just said it. You just said, like, except for the rounds that he got knocked down, Devin was winning those rounds. And I don't want to go back to this debate. Like, I do believe that Devin getting up proves he's got a chance.
The welterweight version of Pacquiao Marquez. Same thing with Pacquiao Marquez. Marquez would win more rounds. Pacquiao would just,
Hey, and how did that rivalry end?
It ended up in a huge knockout, but it took 4 fights. So,
all competitive.
When you have a technical fighter or a speed demon with technique, like Devin Haney, but you have a guy that could just, he's so explosive. Pacquiao was explosive with his feet and his hands. Ryan Garcia's flat-footed. He's just explosive with his hands, but that's been enough. That's been enough for him. So yeah, I think this could be a rematch, a trilogy in the making. If Haney can actually put some things together, not get hit early, and win a rematch against Ryan Garcia, we might have something special for the history books.
Yeah. With Conor Benn and Ryan, the buildup would be great. The fight might not be. With Devin and Ryan, the buildup would be great, and the fight will be. I don't know what the pay-per-view buy number was the first time around, but I've said this before. I would expect you to triple it. Really. I would expect to be triple the number of buys that they had the first time around, because now the anticipation is real. Even if Ryan goes crazy again during that fight week and says all the nonsense he said last time, people will believe that it's going to be a great fight because the first one was a great fight. So I would love to see this tweet from Ryan Garcia I love to interpret it as Ryan turning back towards Devin Haney. I don't know that to be true, but I'd love that to be the case, and I want to see that happen.
Let's throw this in there, and on even terms, because Ryan Garcia came in 4 pounds overweight. He failed that PED test. And
it would have to be, because both these guys are they're welterweight champions. They're welterweight.
So we got to throw it out there. It wasn't a clean, and it wasn't an in shape, responsible Ryan Garcia. On even terms, can we still see that?
Well, look, one of the things Devin has been saying, Devin's been going like, you got to enter VADA, you got to do that. And he's right. Like, you got to
there you go. We just had to throw that in there, Mannix. All right.
And look, the weight wouldn't be a problem because it's a title unification fight. And I think that adds a little bit more juice to it as well. The winner of this fight comes out the unified champion and unquestionably the number one guy at 147 pounds. So there's lots of reasons to like this fight. And I hope this foreshadows some negotiations there where this fight gets back on the proverbial calendar.
Foreshadows. I like that word. Forbearing. Forefathers. Golf foursome. You know what I'm saying.
No, I rarely do. And in this case, I still don't. All right. One of the other things that came out of this past weekend was some news from Oscar De La Hoya that the two sides between Golden Boy and Vergil Ortiz are starting to come together and talk about a deal to end this stalemate between them. We know that Vergil and Golden Boy have been embroiled in some litigation right now. Some mediation is scheduled for July, but the hope is that they're not going to get that far. Rick Meridian, who is the manager for Virgil Ortiz, and Eric Gomez at Golden Boy have been discussing a deal. From what I was told, the framework is in place. What would happen is it would see Virgil Ortiz return to Golden Boy to fulfill the final 3 fights of his contract. And then I guess we'll see what happens after that. I'm sure there were some financial concessions along the way from Golden Boy. Really, all this is waiting for is the go-ahead from Oscar De La Hoya. And Oscar told me on Saturday that he is comfortable with the way the deal looks, and he's confident that Virgil Ortiz will fight again this year. If that's the case, Sergio, and understand, we haven't seen Virgil since November, but if that's the case, where Virgil Ortiz is set to return for Golden Boy this year, the question then becomes, what level of fight are we going to see him in? We know that Virgil Ortiz was in line to fight Boots-Zayas as early as March of this year. That was right around the time when everything went, to hell with Golden Boy. If Virgil and Golden Boy come together and resolve their issues in the next few weeks, should Virgil Ortiz, in his next fight the winner of Boots-Zayas and Xander Zayas?
Yeah, I think Virgil would agree as well. Virgil is 28 years old. Who would have thunk that Ryan Garcia would win a world title before Virgil Ortiz? Virgil Ortiz was knocking out everybody. He should have been a star by now. He's an A-side, but he should have been an A-side star, fighting all over the place, headlining in Texas and Vegas. But it's not management. It's just maybe the right fights haven't been aligned to him. But the kid has the knockout. He's always going for the knockout. He definitely puts butts in seats. He needs that dance partner, though. He needs someone else. Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz will be one of the biggest fights in boxing.
Well, no, we're not doing
when
that.
It happens.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because they're in 2 different weight classes now, and they'll probably be in 2 different weight classes for a while. Like Virgil Ortiz,
you're telling me that 154 is not a weight class?
I don't think Virgil is going to be at 154 very long. I think he's going to be at 154 for these big fights, and then he's going to go up. All that stuff, that was Rick Meridian reading between the lines or connecting some dots that weren't really there. We're not going to see Ryan take on Virgil. Ryan's got a lot of business to take care of at 147. Virgil's got plenty of business to take care at 154. Now, if you tell me 2 years from now, they're in and around the same weight class.
It's either going to be the winner of Zayas Boots, was an excellent fight, or Sebastian Fundora, who advised no one to fight. I don't want anybody to fight the Towering Inferno.
What are
Terrible
you talking
matchup
about? Of course,
any potential star. I don't want Boots to fight him, Zayas to fight him, Ryan Garcia to fight him. I'm sorry to.
You're talking about a guy that's gotten beat already. Like, we've seen Sebastian Fundora get knocked out. He is not unbeatable. Why are we talking like guys should avoid him at all costs? Like, I don't think Virgil Ortiz would avoid him. I know Boots-Zayas wouldn't avoid him. Look, to answer the question about business, it's the winner of Boots against Zayas, which is a major fight, regardless of who comes out of that. You've got Josh Kelly, part of the Matchroom stable as well. He's got another piece of the 154-pound championship. If he still has that title towards the end of the year, that's a pretty good fight. And then Fundora hanging around there for like an undisputed championship fight. That's a great fight. That's a great fight. And if you're going to walk away from a Fundora fight, if you're Virgil Ortiz, but I'm not saying he is, like, take a walk. Like, get out of the game. If this guy's a 154-pound he's a champion at junior middleweight. What do you want? You want him not to fight the guy? The guy's got a damn belt. You want him to avoid him because he's tall?
So many other fighters have belts, Mannix, at 147.
But if he collects the rest of them, at 54, I'm saying if he collects the rest of them, then what's he going to do? Say, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to go to 160 because this guy's too tall for me to fight. That is a chicken shit idea. That's a wimpy philosophy. And by the way, I don't think Virgil agrees with you. I think Virgil tomorrow would take that fight against Sebastian Fundora. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
The same reason Canelo never fought Benavidez is the same reason nobody should fight Sebastian Fundora. Nobody that's knocking on the door to being a star. No one that's making so much money. No one has that unblemished record that already has that mass appeal. You don't do that. Why did you work so hard to build that record, that fan base, just to throw it away one night against? I mean, Fundora is a champion. He's very tricky to fight, 6'6" southpaw, but it's not popular. Fundora's not a ticket seller. Why are you going to risk it all for a belt?
He's not a ticket seller either. He's not like some complete. He's not what Bakram was when he had the title. Like he's a little bit more visible than that. I don't think he's
Look
as
at who you're comparing
anonymous.
him to, Bakram.
Well, I'm saying like that's a guy that maybe like, all right, well, it doesn't really bring a lot to the table. I'm not going to go out and fight him. Fundora is not that type of guy, and I would reiterate, he's beatable. Brian Mendoza, not
Man,
Sebastian
that's why I
Fundora
gotta stop
cold.
you. He's beatable. Everyone's beatable.
So why not fight
beatable,
him?
But no one can beat them because no one can prepare for
was
a
beaten.
6'6" southpaw.
Ryan Mendoza did.
Mannix, where the fuck are you gonna find a 6'6" southpaw?
You can find
dare
them.
you to
They're in
go
different weight classes.
Streets of wherever city you're in right now. You hang around a lot of basketball players. See if one of them is willing to step into the ring with a professional fighter. That's the only place you're gonna get a 6'6" guy, and chances are he's not a left-hander. So where the hell
let me try this way. Let me try
of a fighter.
This is what. Let me try the question this way. You're a former 154-pound champion. If you were a 3-belt 154-pound champion, and Sebastian Fundora had the only other piece of the title, would you fight him or would you move up in weight?
Man, I would run as fast as I can from that Fundora fight. I'm just telling you the way it is. I would sprint the opposite direction. Not because I can't try to prepare for him. My trained Dean would love that fight because he sees a lot of holes in not only both Fundoras.
I know.
And I loved fighting tall fighters. Man, I made a living fighting off tall fighters. I fought a 6'5" guy, but that 6'5" guy wasn't a southpaw. He wasn't a volume puncher. He didn't have power. He didn't have relentless. He had a conditioning. He didn't take up. Fundora takes a pretty good shot as well. Even though he did get knocked out, he got knocked out by a puncher. He's just a headache. I would avoid him. And you asked me the question, I wouldn't fight Fundora. In my prime of my career, I wouldn't fight Sebastian Fundora when I could be looking at other names that are just as big and I can make more money and more eyes will be on that fight because they're more popular.
I appreciate the honesty there. I thought you'd go in a different direction. I just think that as good as Fundora is, we've seen him beaten before. Granted, getting sparring for him is difficult, but there are other guys that getting sparring for is difficult, and you still wind up fighting them. I think if Virgil Ortiz is a unified champion at the end of the year, we are going to see him fight Sebastian Fundora. Full stop. All right, last thing for you. Turki Alalshikh took to social media over the week and said that he would like to get everybody together and have everybody get along. We know that there's been a lot of back and forth between the promoters over at Zuffa, Eddie Hearn, who's got Anthony Joshua, Frank Warren, who's got Tyson Fury. This Fury-AJ fight, the behind-the-scenes negotiations are pretty much a mess right now because everyone's vying to be one of the lead promoters. One side is trying to block Zuffa from getting in. Zuffa is trying to squeeze their way in some way, somehow. Turki Alalshikh says he wants to help people make peace. Do you believe that is possible for everybody to get on the same page for a fight like this to happen?
No, it's not possible. Some things are just not meant to be mend. They're just forever fractured. I mean, I can get into a lot of, subjects. I'm thinking of a religion right now, but never talk religion, politics. I could think of a lot of things. Marriage, another one. Some things you just don't say, you just don't do, and just
keep
don't
touching those third rails.
You just gotta tread lightly around these. With boxing, it's forever gonna be one of these sports at the Wild Wild West. There's too many players. And look, the Zone has been doing a great job putting them on under one network, but you still got Zuffa now, and you still got that big treasure chest of money over there. And it's surprising to hear Turki Alalshikh say that he wants to bring everyone together when he invested in Zuffa and he invested in the Zone, and they're the competition. So they're high aspirations, and if anyone can do it, it's someone like Turki. And I just don't see it, Mannix. I don't see it with the pride of a Dana White with Zuffa and the grand glory that he's coming in right now. He thinks he's like a Roman warrior coming to a new sport. He wants to conquer everyone. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And Oscar De La Hoya hasn't done it. Eddie Hearn, he did a great job coming to the States, and he's still doing a great job, but he hasn't taken over the sport. Queensberry, they silently do everything out there. Bob Arum, who's the king at promoting, he never did it. So I just think it's unconquerable. Boxing is unconquerable. I don't think it's ever going to be under one name, one banner. There's always going to be that one guy that goes rogue and thinks they could do it on their own or stay small long enough to finally get a big fight. And then that's when you reap all the rewards and the money, kind of like a Salida or kind of like one of these smaller Artie Paludo type banner promotion type fighters. When you just get that one fighter that knocked out a champion, then you reap all the rewards. But I just don't see it under one umbrella.
It's interesting that you define success as Artie Palulo and Demetrius Salita. I don't know if I quite follow
Because
that
I
thread.
fought under banner promotions and
There it
Salita
is.
does shows on the zone and stuff
He
like
does.
that.
He does.
These are the
I think,
smaller
I
guys,
think,
the smaller
I
guys that are
think
trying to inch their way up to the big shots, and
trying to get there. Yeah, you kind of went rogue there a bit, but I think it's interesting that Turki is saying this because Turki Alalshikh and Sella, they own 60% of Zuffa Boxing. Theoretically, Turki could just tell Dana White and tell Nick Khan to get into a room and figure this out, to have it be on multiple networks, to have it be a co-promotion. And I'm not just talking about the AJ versus Fury fight, which is going to be on Netflix when it happens, but the Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn fight. You can get them in the same room, figure out a economic model that works. Like Turki Alalshikh, I'm not being glib saying this, but he is the boss at Zuffa Boxing. He is the money behind Zuffa Boxing. This has been, this is what Mark Shapiro from TKO has said. He said, this is their money. We're getting a fee to basically administer Zuffa Boxing. So I find that interesting that Turki seemingly could very easily instruct Dana White to do this. And, if he doesn't, then we'll see how something like that would play out. The other stuff I do agree with you with, no one coming into boxing can take it over. It's just, it's impossible. And all the names you mentioned are right, but you throw Heyman in there with PBC and what he did back in, 2014, 2015 with all that network money. Eddie Hearn coming in with his own, with the $1 billion contract. Like everybody tried to spend their way to success in boxing and nobody has been able to do it.
One big player. The Contender 2005.
Okay,
Sylvester Stallone, Sugar Ray Leonard,
off.
Mark Burnett, NBC. They came
for
guns
1 year.
blazing.
And the rest of the Contender
more than 1
shows,
year.
let's be honest, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, you're the only Contender winner people really
I
remember.
get it, but what I'm saying, they came in with network money. They came in with all the big players, all the
They
big
did,
money.
but you're kind of making my point. It fizzled after a while. It
Wasn't
worked
enough.
for a year. Right. It worked for a year. It wasn't enough. So it's not possible for that to happen. My biggest problem with Zuffa, and I'm not saying that, I'm not criticizing them because we work on DAZN or we, are around different fighters. I'm happy to talk about and write about Zuffa fighters. I'm interviewing Brandon Lee this week, who's coming back on a Zuffa show on Sunday because I like Brandon Lee, undefeated. I'm kind of fascinated by him because he's been gone for a while, or at least been off the grid for a while. But Zuffa's unwillingness to co-promote bothers me because that doesn't work. History has shown that doesn't work.
All right, look.
That's not what
I'm
they're saying
right now.
That's not what they're saying.
Zuffa's going to be forced to work with other fighters that they want, other promoters and managers and whatever networks, if they want to grow their brand and if they want to grow to the aspirations that they're dreaming of. They're not going to be able to do it alone, no matter how much money they got. It takes more than money. It takes connections, politics, fighters. And you're going to have to cross the street in order to do that. And that's how every other promoter has done it. They do it on their terms, but sooner or later, these promoters end up working with each other, no matter how much they hate each other. Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, Matchroom, on and on. Don King, Bob Arum. It goes on and on and on. So it's going to happen here. It's just time is going to have to humble the mentality, that Roman conqueror mentality of Dana White.
It is, or else I don't believe it's going to work. And look, it's not all that complicated. I mean, you look at the Garcia-Ben deal, right? If you just bring Golden Boy into the fold, and believe me, Golden Boy, and Eddie Hearn mentioned this, Oscar and Dana White up there on a stage for multiple press tours. I mean, that's That's good TV.
There you
That's good
go.
TV right there. That's better TV, I think, than Canelo versus Munguia because that's two guys speaking English up there and going at it back and forth. And contractually, like you could do this fight where it's streamed as part of the DAZN Ultimate package. It's streamed as part of Paramount Plus. Like there are ways to make this work. And I was talking to one manager about this recently. Like managers, fighters, and you can speak to this. Like you want every network involved. Like you want your fight on every network. Get Netflix on board as well. How about we bring back HBO? How about we do it on ESPN? Like the more networks are involved, the more promotion happens, the more eyeballs come in, the more money eventually comes in. So it's not going to be Conor Benn going, you know what, I'm only fighting on whatever platform Zuffa Boxing tells me to. It's not going to be Conor Benn's manager that says we're only fighting whatever platform Zuffa Boxing says. This to me comes down to ego. This is people that maybe don't want to make this work, that want to do it unilaterally, and that just doesn't work. We have got decades of history showing that boxing cannot, in your word, be conquered. It cannot be taken over by any one entity. You've got to go along to get along. And if you do, there's that whole rising tides analogy. Like if you have success, the other guy's going to have success. No sport is dominated by one network. The NBA is on NBC. They're on Amazon. They're on ESPN. They're on ABC. Same thing for all these other sports. No one platform, no one promoter needs to be unilaterally in charge of boxing or like the arbiter of all boxing. I wish that
Ego.
Zuffa Boxing was doing more of that because then I would be a little bit more receptive to what they're doing. I think they're doing some decent fights, but if you want to do the big ones, keeping it in-house is not how it's going to work. We've seen that tried again and again. It always fails.
No, you got to check your ego. And you're talking about a sport that everyone, profits off the ego, but leave the ego to the fighters, not the promoters. So yeah, I think a lot of people need to swallow their pride. And if they do swallow their pride, they're not going to get indigestion. They can get more for the fans. They can give more to the fans, more to the spectators. And then in turn, they can get more revenue in their pocket because they're doing the right thing by checking their ego.
I have absolutely no idea where you were trying to go with that metaphor on indigestion and ego and swallowing
It's
it.
a quote, I think. It just quotes pop up in my head. Swallowing my pride never gave me indigestion. I want to say it's Mark Twain, but it's not Mark Twain. And as far as the ego goes, Sigmund Freud would talk about the ego, the id, and the super id. So study up on the ego.
Pack your bags. I'll see you in New York.